A specific type of loneliness exists that doesn't always present as loneliness. It is silent, unseen. It conceals itself behind smiles, behind efficiency, behind the words, "I've just been occupied." Yet internally, a hurt lingers that doesn't fully fade. It isn't the solitude of physical isolation. It's the solitude of understanding that you are not truly known. That were you to vanish for a time, many wouldn't realize it immediately. That should something amazing or dreadful occur, you'd have no one to inform. This is the sort of quietness that builds within you gradually. Not overt, not frantic, just persistent. In time, this begins to alter your thoughts, your self-perception, and how you navigate life. It's common to presume friendless individuals are frigid, withdrawn, or indifferent. This, however, is seldom the complete picture. Often, the reverse is true. Often, they feel too profoundly. They notice too many things. They perceive each minor tonal inflection, every slight energetic shift, every insincere smile that fails to warm the eyes. And after some time, they begin to pull back, not from misanthropy, but because linking with others begins to feel perilous. Mentally, this ordeal alters the mind. Lacking societal ties for extended periods causes your brain to register solitude as a danger. It activates the very areas linked to bodily discomfort. This explains why isolation stings not just mentally but also physically. Your pulse alters, your rest grows shallower, your brain seeks out threats where none exist. This is because humanity developed in groups, and prolonged solitude was historically fatal. Still, now, one can be encircled by countless individuals digitally, yet feel completely invisible. For notice is not bonding, and approval is not closeness. A gap exists between being recognized and being comprehended. This is the aspect those without friends grasp more than others. The majority did not select this route suddenly. They didn't just awaken and resolve, "I require no one." Typically, it unfolds gradually, via minor letdowns accumulating over time. You reveal something private and are met with ridicule. You confide in someone and they weaponize your confidence. You attempt vulnerability but feel misconstrued. And in time, your mind absorbs a teaching. Attempting is less secure. Thus, you cease contact, you halt invitations, you convince yourself that aloneness is better. Initially, you may accept this as solitude offers temporary tranquility. It grants you command. It grants you room. The reality, however, is that given enough time, isolation shifts from restorative to tormenting. Fundamentally, people are built for bonding. The most self-reliant spirit yet longs for visibility, for reflection, for the sense of another's being. Lacking that for years, though, causes an odd internal shift. Your inner monologue starts to overpower your surroundings. You begin conversing with yourself, not audibly, but via ceaseless cognitions. You relive past recollections, former friendships, past treacheries, questioning the point of failure. At times, you accept the blame yourself. At times, you fault the world. More often, it is neither. It is merely the intricate interplay of the human psyche and human suffering. A psychological principle exists known as learned social helplessness. This occurs when, after numerous failed attempts to bond, you subconsciously cease all effort. Your mind links outreach with refusal. Consequently, encountering decent individuals later, caring, receptive, empathetic, your defenses remain. You may claim contentment in solitude, yet deep inside you still crave that single person who understands, that one who requires no clarification. Still, the greater your desire, the more unattainable it seems. Isolation possesses a knack for making you feel undeserving of companionship. It murmurs suggestions. You are excessive or you lack fascination. It insists that others are otherwise occupied. In time, you internalize this. You begin to dismiss yourself before others have the opportunity. You withdraw not from arrogance, but for self-preservation. Yet this is the intriguing part. Solitude does not invariably appear mournful. Often, individuals lacking friends seem perfectly okay. They beam, they labor, they produce. They might even share cheerful images digitally. Internally, however, they inhabit dual existences: the reality others perceive and the reality they experience. They have constructed a self-image engineered to endure minus companionship. This persona, however, frequently feels empty, as if they are observing their existence externally. It is simple to criticize those who lack friends, to brand them odd, distant, or problematic. Yet, attending carefully to their narratives, one often discovers a strand of silent sorrow. Times when they offered excessive parts of themselves to individuals indifferent about remaining. And eventually, that sorrow molds their whole being. They start to link closeness with peril and openness with remorse. Thus, they adapt to existing apart from it. The price for this adjustment, however, is steep. Lacking authentic companionship, one's universe contracts. Your feelings begin to reverberate solely within your head. No individual exists to question your outlook. No one to temper your cognitions. Experts state that extended societal isolation may diminish empathetic capacity, not due to a loss of concern, but from a cessation of effective interchange. Empathy functions like a muscle. Unexercised, it atrophies. Thus, individuals solitary for extended durations can grow effectively numb, not willfully, but necessarily. It is the mind's defense against the ache of unfulfilled bonding. Still, a contradiction emerges. The specific individuals lacking friends frequently desire profound companionship more than others. They contemplate connection with greater depth. They dissect it. They idealize it. They seek significance in each minor engagement, each fleeting grin. For when a thing is scarce, you begin to cherish its briefest instances. But isolation impacts more than just your feelings. It influences your conduct. Research indicates those isolated for lengthy spells may grow overly alert to societal signals. They scrutinize digital messages. They perceive apathy where it is absent. They infer meaning in unstated text. Having faced sufficient refusal or neglect, your mind starts seeking indicators of it universally, even when illusory. This establishes a self-perpetuating cycle. You grow wary. Others interpret that wariness as remoteness. They presume your indifference or frigidity. And they withdraw, strengthening the exact isolation you sought to flee. You are not to blame. It is simply the psyche's method of shielding itself from hurt. More intriguing still is how solitude alters your temporal perception. Lacking anyone to partake in your experiences, time seems to decelerate. Days merge. You cease monitoring weekends or celebrations. Such markers hold relevance only when experienced with others. Researchers have determined that isolation genuinely modifies time awareness. Minutes seem protracted, hours more burdensome. Disconnected, you inhabit your mind rather than the current of existence. Still, from this quiet, beauty may arise. Aloneness, embraced deliberately, can also be metamorphic. Several of history's most insightful, imaginative, and empathetic figures endured extended periods of isolation. The distinction lies in whether the solitude is voluntary or imposed. Voluntary solitude restores. Imposed solitude embitters. The first aids in rediscovering oneself. The second persuades you that you are unworthy of connection. For numerous friendless individuals, it remains ambiguous which state they inhabit. They make statements such as, "I'm not inclined toward people," or "I enjoy solitude." Yet, internally, they long for the laughter that erupts only with someone who truly understands them. The sort where speech requires no forethought. The sort where quiet feels comforting, not oppressive. One can easily overlook that companionship transcends mere interaction. It is a reflection. It shows you aspects of yourself unseen in isolation. Lacking friends, gauging your own development becomes more difficult, or whether you are developing whatsoever. We do not form our identities merely in solitude. we form our identities through mirroring. When that mirroring is absent, you may begin to feel insubstantial, as if adrift in a mist, your presence resonating nowhere. This is the silent anguish of the friendless, not the ache of solitude proper, but the ache of being unseen, the ache of living unobserved. However, under that ache rests a profound capacity for empathy. Knowing the feeling of invisibility, they often perceive others with greater clarity. They are frequently the ones detecting another's exclusion. They are the ones who monitor others discreetly, understanding the sensation of being overlooked. Perhaps this is the contradiction of such isolation, that the friendless often become the finest friends if someone would only invest the effort to perceive them. A realization often arrives silently for one who, after protracted solitude, sees that awaiting discovery may be insufficient. That perhaps, just perhaps, recovery isn't primarily about discovering others, but recalling your identity before the quiet set in. Genuine companionship can only flourish where self-belief is already present. If you doubt your voice's significance, you will invariably suppress it. If you view your requirements as an imposition, you will consistently withhold them. Thus, the pattern persists. Invisible, silent, unvoiced. Friendless individuals frequently exist under the shade of past encounters. Times they perceived themselves as overly distinct, too perceptive, too reflective for their surrounding peers. As youths, perhaps they were the ones sketching apart while others engaged. Perhaps their kindness was too quiet for recognition, or perhaps their concerns diverged from the norm. Eventually, they wore this distinction as a shield, feigning indifference to the pain, persuading themselves they favored separation. Yet distinctness isn't the issue. It's the significance we assign it. Maturing with a sense of being misconstrued leads to believing you are somehow flawed. You start to diminish yourself. You speak less, emote less, anticipate less. Quickly, you transform into a persona incompatible even with those who might have cherished your true self. The mentality driving this is fundamentally human. Our minds are built for inclusion, in tribes and circles, with another. It's a primal survival drive. Yet when inclusion seems perilous, when each effort results in hurt, the mind adopts evasion as a defense. Evasion becomes a safeguard, and that safeguard becomes isolation. This explains the surface tranquility of many solitary individuals. Their physiology has adjusted to anticipate refusal preemptively. They exist in perpetual self-regulation, striving to evade excess or noticeability. They frequently fail to grasp that this prolonged effort renders them increasingly unseen, not just to the world, but to their own selves. It resembles muffling one's brilliance to elude the wrong attention, only to find the right attention is also repelled. Experts occasionally discuss the social self-concept, your self-image as viewed through others' supposed gaze. Having endured years of disregard or omission, that internal reflection warps. You begin to presume universal perception will be identical. Even when met with genuine kindness, you question it. You assume politeness. You challenge their authenticity. This is the harsh deception of extended solitude. It not only detaches you from people, it detaches you from the capacity to trust in your own inclusion. Yet, the human psyche is remarkable. It can relearn bonding. The state is not irreversible. Akin to a muscle regaining power, societal trust can be restored, gradually, via small, brave acts. It begins with minor actions, returning a smile, replying to texts rather than dissecting them, permitting yourself to agree despite fear. It isn't about manufacturing immediate confidence. It's about permitting life's contact anew, moment by moment. Companionship stems not from flawlessness, but from attendance, the readiness to appear, flawed and genuine. Many fail to recognize that the long-term lonely often possess profound emotional capacity. They reflect deeply, watch silently. Having analyzed behavior externally for years, they grasp overlooked nuances. They detect authenticity, sense energetic changes, and discern genuine sincerity from feigned kindness. Consequently, superficial bonds seldom fulfill them. They yearn for profundity while simultaneously dreading it, thus erecting barriers with apertures. They desire connection, but conditionally, via security, reliability, and a quiet that feels comforting, not void. These are not irrational wants, they are merely human. Yet a deeper reality exists. Companionship demands openness, and openness feels frightening after years of self-defense. Ties cannot be forged without effective vulnerability, and that vulnerability, when previously wounded, feels like traversing shattered glass shoeless. Thus, many shun it entirely. They claim contentment in solitude, but this is seldom factual. They are simply weary of being the sole initiator. Here lies the contradiction. Ceasing all effort validates the very fear that maintained the solitude. You affirm your own isolation. This is how the mentality of isolation perpetuates. Not from an inability to bond, but from a psyche too fearful to hazard the unfamiliar. Imagine, though, if connection hinged not on impressing, but on sincerity. Imagine if companionship wasn't an achievement to be won, but something merely permitted. The reality is, individuals who genuinely align with you demand no act. They will accept you as you are. They will perceive your stillness not as a void, but as profundity. Occasionally, the initial move isn't acquiring new friends. It's mourning the past selves who accepted substandard treatment. The self that pleaded for notice, the one that took scraps and named it affection, the one that muted its integrity to retain proximity. Healing those personas prompts a change. You begin to draw others from a place of completeness, not need, altering the entire dynamic. A peculiar liberty emerges when you cease pursuing others and commence understanding yourself. You start to realize solitude doesn't imply you are damaged. It signifies you are awaiting synchronization, awaiting those who don't just sense the quiet, but contribute tranquility to it. For bonds that feel like respiration, not presentation. Isolation can be instructive, if permitted. It reveals the sort of companionship your spirit genuinely needs. It clarifies the energy you project, compelling you to cultivate an internal world so robust that upon the right people's arrival, you can greet them with assurance, not apprehension. Here is a silent truth. The friendless often evolve into their own keenest analysts. They achieve a self-insight others may never find. They invest time in contemplation, inquiry, and development. That profundity, originating in solitude, eventually attracts the appropriate individuals. The type of individuals who perceive not just your current self, but the self you forged through solitary endurance. Yet recovering from protracted isolation requires time. It cannot be hurried. It cannot be feigned. It commences with mild self-approval, learning to address yourself as a compassionate friend might. When your psyche insists, nobody is concerned about you, respond gently. That is incorrect. I am learning concern. When your mind murmurs, you will remain solitary, counter with, I remain receptive to discovery. Your brain attends, it adapts. Neurological roots shift via iteration, not magic. The more you validate bonding, the more receptive you grow to its arrival. And it shall arrive. Isolation isn't a fixed condition. It is a phase, a mental winter that ultimately yields to warmth if you permit the thaw. The reality, lacking friends doesn't diminish your humanity. It just mutes your narrative. Yet, even silent narratives hold power. They can be rich with creativity, self-exploration, and significance. Many profound intellectuals, authors, and artists passed years in solitude before achieving inclusion. When they finally did, it was more profound, sagacious, and stable. They had first mastered appreciating their own presence. Therefore, if you are currently without friends, please grasp this. You are not damaged nor undeserving. You are merely mid-transformation. The world has not overlooked you. It is only anticipating your self-recollection. A time will arrive when you face someone who, gazing at you, remarks, "I feel I've known you eternally." At that instant, all the time spent questioning your own flaws will cohere. You will see that isolation was not punitive. It was preparatory. Each silent evening, each ignored message, each unseen pain sculpted you into the person capable of sustaining true connection upon its arrival. You will cease yearning for the masses and begin prizing the unique. You will cease pursuing notice and begin discerning energy. You will at last comprehend that companionship isn't numerical. It is about acknowledgement. It's the moment two individuals meet eyes and wordlessly convey, "You as well?" I believed I was alone in this. Perhaps that is the most authentic companionship, not founded on ceaseless talk, but on silent comprehension, on shared tenderness, on two spirits, both familiar with solitude, mutually resolving to never experience it again. For bonding is not about discovering flawless individuals. It is about discovering sincere ones. Those who can share your quiet, chuckle at your flaws, and perceive the elegance in your intricacy. Such people are worth the anticipation. Upon their arrival, you will ultimately grasp the meaning of visibility, not for the persona built for endurance, but for the individual you were always destined to be. Before then, treat yourself with tenderness, use kind words, and recall, though no one may be next to you presently, you remain deserving of being known. You remain deserving of companionship. You remain a segment of mankind's unseen fiber, perpetually linked, even in your most silent phases. Perhaps someday you will encounter another who also once lacked friends. You will recognize it in their gaze, the identical quiet, the identical comprehension. You will offer a smile, and they will reciprocate, and in that way, two solitary worlds will reconnect. For isolation is not the conclusion of your tale. It is merely the juncture where your subsequent chapter commences.